I tremble, and tremble even yet, so till all was over. God be thanked, my nerve did stand. Had I not seen the repose in the first place, and the gladness that stole over it just as the final dissolution came, as realization that the soul had been won, could not have gone further with my butchery. Oh, righteous God, release this poor creature's soul to thy care. God in heaven, I could not have endured the horrid screeching as the stake drove home, the plunging of rising foam and lips of bloody foam. I should have fled in terror and left my work undone. Oh, my child, I will release you from this curse.
I lay quiet, looking out onto my eyelashes in an agony of delightful anticipation.
Listen to them, the children of the night. What music they make.
From the D&E Studios, welcome to the sexiest show on the internet, the Dracula Podcast. I am your host, Lawrence Burgess, or LB for short. Thank you to Adam Stover, Rob and Martha of Southgate Media, Drake's Nest Entertainment, and most of all, you for listening. We aim to bring you thoughtful, stimulating media, reviewing the films, books, music, plays, and personalities that make Stoker's creations so beloved, the criticism to inform your purchasing decisions, interesting guests, and the needs of our communities. If you want to get in touch with us, it's not hard. Drop us a line on the inbox at audio.dracula@gmail.com, Facebook and Twitter at Dracula Audio, and don't forget, you can also purchase the copy of Dracula the audio drama out right now at drakesnestentertainment.com. Be sure not to miss out on the best product out there on the internet. Folks, welcome. I appreciate you all listening and joining in. If you had a chance to listen to our Christopher Lee tribute and Shaka Khan episode, I'm glad. But if you haven't, don't worry. Check out the Southgate Media Group archives at southgatemediagroup.com. That's southgatemediagroup.com. There you will find all of our episodes and specials and archives, and you don't want to miss that. Folks, it's been a while. We're going to try to get back on a regular schedule and throwing out two big things at you. And we appreciate the time and the patience. I've had a lot of emails in my inbox, so we'll go ahead and get started. Jack from Lexington, Kentucky writes, Lawrence, I really enjoyed your talk with Matt Frazier. I'm not sure how to follow him. I really like Matt Frazier. He was well-spoken and the most informed of the guests that we saw at ShakaCon. As he stated before, the best way to follow him is on his Twitter, and it's spelled MAT_FRASER, Matt Fraser. And go ahead and follow him right now. Lots of interesting things happening, and of course, he is of American Horror Story fame. Christy from Morgantown, West Virginia writes, Lawrence, you've done 6 of 8 for your Universal Studios Monsters. When are you going to do the other 2? We are actually going to do the other 2, 7 and 8, on this podcast. So, folks, we are going to finish that up. And once again, I thank you for your patience. I've gotten a lot of queries on 1, where are you? 2, what are you doing? And if you've listened to ShakaCon and you've taken a sample of Dracula the audio drama, you know exactly what I've been doing. Not only that, but I've been involved in a bunch of things. I was the PA announcer for the West Virginia Power baseball team this season who made the playoffs, and then, not so much. I'm also narrating an audiobook, in production on another audio drama, and I'm actually returning to the stage. It is a Sherlock Holmes play, and if you've been following me on Facebook, this is no surprise to you. We have auditions coming up, and we're about to complete our cast very soon. I'm extremely excited to announce a partnership with John Johnson on this play, Sherlock Holmes and the Beast of Whitechapel, which I also co-wrote with him. It's a great experience. It's historically authentic, and to the spirit of Conan Doyle, it's extremely loyal. So I'm very excited to be involved in this project. The cast announcement's going to be made soon, and I appreciate all of your feedback and commentary. So I've got some new friends helping me here on the podcast. Right now, I'm going to introduce you to my first assistant. His name is Lancaster of the House Titmouse.
No, it's Lancaster of the House Titmouse.
Very sorry, Lancaster. I apologize for any inconvenience.
Oh, that's all right. No problem whatsoever. Are you ready to do the news?
Go right ahead.
I've got quite a few stories prepared if you're ready.
Actually, yes, I am ready. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for news from around the globe, and we're going to go ahead and start with a review for a film which recently came out. I have not seen this film. Lancaster, would you like to comment?
Oh, the movie's just so awful. It's absolute nonsense. That actor that makes all those silly, foul, bad movies, he's actually starring in an animated version called Hotel Transylvania. So awful.
Yeah, I didn't even have to go see the film to know that.
Not even where it starts. Not only is the animation very poor, but Adam Sandler as Dracula. Good gracious. Next thing they're going to have me do is run around and streak naked through the World Cup or some such nonsense. So silly and ridiculous.
On this show, Lancaster, we've been preaching about quality, and the stuff like this can't stand.
I have no idea how Hollywood thinks they're going to make such a terrible film. But I tell you what, no more. If there's a Hotel Transylvania 3, I'll throw myself from the top of the building, and if the cause of death comes in the coroner, it will say, killed by awful movie in theater.
Well, Lancaster, I hope it doesn't come to that.
Me too, it was so terrible. And it also looks like TCM is back in the serious business of showing Halloween movies. Do you like Halloween movies, Lawrence?
What do you consider a Halloween movie?
Oh, something spooky. Something to make the blood run cold, I believe it was.
Some yes, some no. What is TCM showing?
Well, starting on October 30th, which is a Friday this year, it looks like they have an absolute tribute to Hammer horror. They're showing the 1959 version of The Mummy, Dracula, Prince of Darkness, Frankenstein, Created Woman, Dracula has risen from the grave, Frankenstein must be destroyed, Dracula, AD 1972. And later on that night they have Isle of the Dead, starring Boris Karloff in 1945. You better get up early on Halloween Day, too, because White Zombie at 8:30, The Fearless Vampire Killers at 11:15, House of Wax, The Devil's Bride, The Picture of Dorian Gray, Mark of the Vampire, all sorts of interesting things going on this year at TCM.
I like when they go back and do the classics. I remember when Universal had Monster Fest. I think it's called Fear Fest now, but they used to show all the Universal classics like Dracula and Frankenstein, which we reviewed here on the podcast.
I just love those movies. They have such style. It's the most wonderful thing. Do you remember that scene where that beautiful woman was put together from dead parts? Oh, made my blood run cold, but I seem to find my first ex-wife. She looks just like that. I also have some other news here. Oh, I don't think you're going to be very happy with this one.
Why is that?
Well, I'll just read the article. This is from Deadline in September. Exclusive. What if Van Helsing did not kill the 3 brides of Dracula? What if they survived for centuries and are now living in New York City? That is the basic premise of Brides, a hot gothic soap drama from playwright, screenwriter, and comic book writer Roberto Aguirre Sagasa, and producer Greg Barlanti, which has landed at NBC.
You mean NBC is back?
Oh, yes, Lawrence, we know how much you love NBC and their treatment of Dracula. After Van Helsing, the Dracula TV show, and Dracula Untold.
I have zero opinion on that. I don't even know where to start. When does it say it's going to begin so I know when not to watch?
You know, that's quite awful. I think you should give them another chance.
That would be chance number 4 since 2004 when they made that crappy movie Van Helsing.
I like to think of myself as an optimist. But if they have hot women on there, well, that might be a reason to stay. Think of it as the Charlie's Angels of Vampires.
Charlie's Angels of Vampires. Well, who would you have as the Charlie's Angels of Vampires?
Well, first of all, I'd like to see Britney Spears. Ooh, she can check it all day. Sometimes I watch her videos while I'm alone at night.
Okay, that's enough. Britney Spears.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I got a little lost there. Second, I'd love that hot chick from that show about fairy tales and such, where she plays the evil queen.
Lana Parrilla.
Oh, yes, Lana Parrilla and Britney Spears. Can you imagine those two rubbing up against each other?
Lancaster.
Sorry. Right. The third one would be, I just love Kristen Ritter. I would spank her buttocks.
All right, time to cut you off. You've had enough. All right, folks, that is news from around the globe, and don't forget that Penny Dreadful is back for Season 3, starting up next year. We've had announcements about Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Seward, and who knows what connections they have, but I'm sure that they will be entwined with the story of Vanessa Ives. And don't forget that a bunch of Blu-rays are being released via Blu-ray.com on October 6th. Bram Stoker's Dracula is getting a 4K scan, promising us higher sound and picture quality, so you might want to go ahead and pick that up. Also on October 6th is Penny Dreadful, the second season on Blu-ray. The first season on Blu-ray was gorgeous, and there's no reason to think why this won't be either. Also, oddly enough, Warner Brothers is releasing a few Hammer films. First, of course, is The Mummy, 1959, but they're also releasing Taste of Blood of Dracula and Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, also to be featured in a 4-film package with The Mummy and Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. If you've listened to our reviews on Taste the Blood of Dracula and Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, they are interesting films, but not necessarily getting that seal of approval, but they're not bad ones either. For Dracula historians, you might want to go ahead and pick that up. Also on October 6th is a very bad film called Nocturna. I'm not even going to dignify anything else with it. Other cool film releases on Blu-ray include Aladdin getting that upgrade, Kiss the Girls, The Phantom of the Opera, 1925. You're going to get 3 cuts of the film, and they're from Kino Video. Kino Video does a very good job, but they are a little bit expensive, so you might want to wait and see what they have to offer before you snatch that up on Blu-ray. Count Yorga and The Return of Count Yorga are also available on Blu-ray on October 13th. And as you move on into the latter part of the month, Universal is releasing some of their better films, including Jurassic Park, re-releasing on Blu-ray. Justice League Unlimited is getting a pack, and so forth. Go check Blu-ray.com, that's BLU-ray.com/movie/release-dates.php. We've hit on a few newsworthy notes, so now it's time to go back into yesteryear and finish off Part 7 and 8 of our study of the Universal Monsters classic film franchise. John Johnson is back. We're going to finish it off, and we're getting into that right now.
Talking about Care, the same year, Roy William Neal,
Oh, I know that name.
a director that John will jump for joy over, directed a film called Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Not a lot of people talk about this film. Why?
No, they don't. It is one of those films that is basically swept under the rug and forgotten about, and it's actually a wonderful film. It brings 2 iconic characters from this series together in a mashup. Lon Chaney Jr. again as the Wolfman. This time Bela Lugosi as the creature. And for me, a great part of the film was having Dennis Hoey as the Scotland Yard inspector, mirroring the role that he was also playing in another series that was going on at the studio at the same time. That shall remain nameless.
The one part I didn't like about this film, and I've watched it multiple times, I didn't like Bela Lugosi as the creature.
He hisses a lot, doesn't he?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't think that he was appropriate for it.
No.
This is going down his career. His career is slowly descending.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really sad that he had to
Mm-hmm.
take this role, and it doesn't work. But everything else does.
Yeah.
It sounds good. It looks good. The pace is really nice. The revival of the Frankenstein monster was a little bit weak.
Yeah.
But the rest of the film was nice. I think it tells a very good story.
I think it does as well. And the villagers, the festival that they're having, to all of it. I mean, and you'll notice that street, that famous backlot that Universal had.
Maliva the Gypsy Woman's also back in this one.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Dwight Fry's back in this one as well in the film. So you get sort of a reunion of some of the character actors that we've known from movies past, along with a great story. I'm with you on Bela Lugosi's part in this. I think this is the signal of the beginning of the end for his career. I think this is where he started descending into campiness in a lot of respects. But still, I think he did what he could with the role that was totally unsuited for him. I think that was probably done more for box office draw than anything else.
Correct.
And sadly, Bela's career was what was sacrificed for that draw.
I give this a thumbs up. I give it the Dracula Podcast seal of approval. You should watch this film. Unfortunately, you can only watch it on DVD. I'm a Blu-ray purist, I know. But this film also should be restored. Universal, they can have so many opportunities by bumping this up to Blu-ray.
Yeah.
There's a lot of die-hard consumers that would wrap these things up. And supposedly, on their 100th anniversary, they were restoring all these great films like Jaws and To Kill a Mockingbird and the old horror films. And they should take advantage of these films back in the 30s and 40s. They're trying to re-release them and package them, but don't fall for that stuff. If you want to consume this film like The Son of Frankenstein, get the Legacy Collection that was re-released and just buy that one if you want to watch this film specifically.
These films, every one of them that we've spoken about, from the Phantom of the Opera in the late 20s right on through to this one, they are not just films. They are a part of Americana. They are a part of our heritage, basically. They are important. Not only will people get them because they're fans of horror, they will get them because of that nostalgia. They're absolutely worth it. Everyone who is a red-blooded American should see these films.
I agree. And that's really what the United States has to offer when it comes to worldwide media in general. Pioneering film, and specifically in sound and what they did with horror. The next film also takes place in the same year, 1943, directed by Robert Soydmak. It is The Son of Dracula. Lon Chaney Jr. is back, but in a different role.
Yes, he is. Lon Chaney is back. Dracula backwards. I forget what they called it in the Monster Squad, but anyways, the name used backwards is the acronym. But anyways, the Southern Plantation is used in this particular point. The swamps and all that, which I found to be an interesting setting. Is this a prelude to Anne Rice's visions for some of her things? No. Good movie with a good story. I found Lon Chaney to be a bit weak in the role. He was not the Dracula that we...
You and I see eye to eye on this. Lon Chaney is better suited for tragic, like Of Mice and Men.
Oh, yes.
And Lawrence Talbot. I like the atmosphere, like you said. I like the cinematography. It drags in some points. I find the pace to be a bit erratic. I thought it could have used a better director. I thought the script was okay, but it needed some more time.
The ending.
Universal was pumping out films just to pump out films at this time.
And this one is a B film. Unlike, we were talking about B films with The Wolfman, which was not a B film.
No.
This one is a B film.
For me, this falls into the same vein as The Black Cat, in which I like the film, but I don't give it the Dracula Podcast seal of approval because it's one of those borderline films. I mean, we've talked about so many already. You can take one of those and watch those before these. But if you're a completist and purist, then yes, go ahead and take a watch of the film, but you might not have to spend money on it.
The first time in the Universal series also that Dracula has la mustache.
Indeed. And where does that come from?
Well, that comes from the book. Yes, actually going back to the book, although the evening clothes He's not in all black. He's still in the evening clothes, but that's a start.
I just. Oh my gosh. So, let me try to be a lawyer. I'll be like, so I'm like testifying, right? And I'm like, hey, so like, a dog was like, woof, woof, and like, kill three people. I could.
19 July. We are progressing. My friend has now a whole colony of sparrows, and his flies and spiders are almost obliterated.
When I came in, he ran to me and said he wanted to ask me a great favor. A very, very great favor. And as he spoke, he fawned on me like a dog. I asked him what it was.
A kitten. A nice little sleek, playful kitten that I can play with and teach and feed and feed and feed.
Well, the next year, Earl C. Kenton started the 2 House films. The first was House of Frankenstein in 1944.
Mm-hmm.
Another addition to the Universal Monster franchise is J. Carrol Naish. He is also known for his role as Dr. Dracula in the Batman serials. If you don't know who he is, he's the guy that says, "Destroy the Batman!" That would be him. John Carradine is Count Dracula.
Yes.
And Glenn Strange is the monster.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, John Carradine. So talk about House of Frankenstein. Boris Karloff's in it, too.
Boris Karloff, Dr. Niemann. Yes. Where can I begin with this film? Because you have 2 different stories going on. I mean, you don't see the creature until about halfway through the film. The first part of the film is dealing with Dracula and a sideshow. Apparently, the skeleton of Dracula became a popular attraction at a particular slideshow that was going through the Transylvanian countryside, and Dracula's skeleton is there with the stake jammed through his heart, and people are cringing at it. Well, what does Boris Karloff as Dr. Niemann and his crazy hunchback assistant do? What do? They remove the stake. So what happens? We have the first reincarnation of Dracula taking place, where you see the flesh and the bones and it all comes together, and there is John Carradine using his hand in sort of a Lugosi fashion, telling them to drop the stake.
I like the word Lugosi. Logosive. That's a very cool word.
Brand new word right
Excellent. There. Hey, if presidents can make up words, so can we here at the Dracula Podcast.
Yes, exactly right.
I like the film in pieces. I really don't like John Carradine as Dracula. I don't. Because of the standards set by Bela Lugosi, and there's so many other good versions. I thought he's boring. He's a little flat. He's not intimidating at all.
The
cape's too short.
The cape is too short, and the tassels are too large to tie it with. It looks like they took a curtain and made a Dracula cape, and it looks like curtain pulls. You're right.
It's like he's trying too hard and he's bored at the same time.
And this is the same cape that he would use in 6 different outings as Dracula. One thing that he did say that in one interview that he stressed was the mustache, which at one point, towards the climax of his part of the film, you see flopping. Half on, half off. Do watch for that. One of the statements that he made in one interview that I recently listened to with him was the fact that he wanted to do his best and try to do his best to get Dracula back to the original. So he played him with gray hair, gray mustache, but he still had the evening clothes on. But he was trying to get it back to Stoker. And I wonder, since this filmed interview was much later on, like from the 80s, if he didn't get some of that from his friend Christopher Lee.
It's possible. I like this film in pieces, but it's actually one of those films that I'm not going to give the Dracula podcast seal of approval.
No.
I actually like Son of Dracula better than I like this, so it's one of those just borderline pieces. It's not a bad film.
Well, we've got Lawrence Talbot back.
Film.
Lawrence Talbot's back. So we do have Lon
that's
Chaney.
really the redeeming factor in this film.
And
his story.
And the monster, Glenn Strange, I thought did a good job trying to fill the boots that Karloff did. Karloff, they say, was so glad to get away from that role.
So the hodgepodge continues. They did it once with Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, which worked pretty well. Didn't work so well in this film, so what they did was they tried again in 1945. Same director, Earl C. Kenton, House of Dracula.
Yes, the cure for vampirism. Yes, vampirism is a parasitic disease that happens in the bloodstream, and John Carradine as Baron Latos seeks out the help of a medical professional to take care of that, and what happens then is absolutely wrong.
It's weird.
Yes.
That's the script is really weird. I want to like this film more, but I can't. There are a lot of good moments in it. Again, Lon Chaney Jr. is saving the film practically by himself. Set pieces were a little bit ridiculous. The editing was lazy at this point.
Here's the major problem I have, and it's in the very first scene. You have Dracula flying in, and then the transformation back to John Carradine. The last film you killed him off. So Dracula's dead, but yet he's back as a bat in this one in the beginning?
Again, there are inconsistencies with Universal, and they start this. Dracula coming back is... It actually didn't start with the Hammer films. It started with Universal.
Yeah.
And the difference is with the Hammer films, they took care to show logic in how Dracula comes back. Here it's, okay, let's just pump out movies and see what sticks.
Yeah.
Again, it's in the same boat as House of Frankenstein. I don't give the Dracula podcast seal of approval, but Lon Chaney Jr. is so good for so long that by himself, it's a great piece. It continues the stories of Dracula, kind of. It continues the story of the Frankenstein monster, which is a bit much. But the most interesting thread is the story of Lawrence Talbot.
Yeah. That's the one thing that these two movies helped to solidify was the story of Lawrence Talbot.
And he was named after me. Just kidding.
Wow. What do you do in a full moon?
He's not named after... Well, that was to be left unspoken. 3 years later, Charles T. Barton comes out with a wonky version of the Universal Monsters. 1948's Abbott and Costello made Frankenstein.
Bela's back in the cape. Yes. Along with Glenn Strange, along with Lon Chaney Jr., again as Lawrence Talbot, and also Vincent Price this time as the voice of the Invisible Man. Yes, on a desert island.
This film is goofy. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And again, if you listened earlier, films that don't take itself too seriously in the 30s and 40s are in a special place in my heart, as does this film. It's still funny.
Yeah.
Bela Lugosi is playing this role straight, and it's really good that way. Because you have Abbott and Costello providing the humor, you've got Lawrence Talbot as the tragic figure in the middle, you got the Frankenstein monster who's a bit of the thread, and might be a little overused. But then you have Count Dracula, who has his own logic in trying to find his place in this modern world.
And now he is also a mad scientist to boot, which is also a precursor to Grandpa Munster.
Oh, boy.
I think that's exactly where that comes from. But anyways, yeah, it's a great film, and Lugosi is just prime. He's doing everything in this film that he can do to bring that charm back to the role, and it's great to see him again.
So do you give this film a thumbs up?
Actually, I do.
I do too. I give it a solid thumbs up.
Yeah.
And here's the cool part. You can also see it in Blu-ray. Once again, Universal gives us a gift. It's not with the collection. It's by itself. The restoration isn't necessarily as good as Dracula, but it's quite solid. It's a funny movie with good performances, a good script, there's sexy ladies, and it's a fun film. It's just fun. It's a good time. Even my wife, who's not really a horror fan, we can sit down, enjoy this film, have a laugh. There's Bela Lugosi as Dracula. How cool is that?
That's exactly right.
It's amazing. So Universal is pretty much, for lack of a better term, in the coffin at this point. Their one last gasp came in 1954 with Jack Arnold's The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, yes.
An entirely different piece from what we've seen previously.
That is a very interesting movie. The creature in itself, the part fish, that was always interesting. The makeup in this one was very, very interesting. And the way that it attacks from below always brought a little element of surprise to the whole thing, I thought. Really, really a good movie.
I thought it was the precursor to Jaws. I love where it's set. I like the performances.
Yeah.
It dragged at times. The editing was a bit sloppy. But I love the shots. I like the way it feels. I give it the Dracula podcast seal of approval.
Absolutely.
And guess what? You can also buy this in the Universal Essential Collection, again on Blu-ray. This is what Universal does well. They do film restoration well. And when they get great properties, when they actually sit down and think about vision and where it wants to go, and there's one person in charge, and Carl Laemmle was there. that's when Universal succeeds.
Mm-hmm.
So, John, what can we learn about this whole journey we've taken from Phantom to Creature from the Black Lagoon?
Well, the number one thing is that people need to get out there and buy that Blu-ray and watch these films if they haven't done so. You're really missing out on quite a bit of our culture by not doing so. These films have stood the test of time. They have been imprinted into the fabric of our minds, basically. So much so, I think, that at times they become campy. But really, folks, get out there and watch these films. If you haven't, you owe yourself a chance to do so.
So, John, taking this journey, what is your least favorite film of the ones we've discussed?
My least favorite performance is Lugosi as Frankenstein. I think every one of them has some merit. My least favorites probably are the house films. Those films in themselves were just too silly, too campy, and it was like they were just trying to pump out movies. You could tell that Universal was in the pump out period.
Because I'm very Dracula-centric, I focused in on the Count himself. And the weakest performance was in the 1931 Spanish version of Dracula. Even though it's a very lively production, that's actually my least favorite of the genre. At least with the house films, there's a little bit of something going on, there's a little action. We know we're past the point of Lugosi, and John Carradine's actually better than Carlos Furias, I think that's his name.
And he's a lot better than Lon Chaney Jr.
He is. That's my least favorite film.
You got to remember, John Carradine did have the best voice in Hollywood.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
we'll see. Out of this whole franchise, people are probably a little lost at this point. But if you had to pick 5 films.
5 films.
Your 5 favorite films for folks to watch out of this whole franchise, what would they be?
They would be Lugosi's Dracula, the 3 original Frankenstein films with Boris Karloff, and The Wolfman. Those are my 5.
Nice pick. Going from 5 to 1, my 5th pick is Son of Frankenstein. My 4th pick is The Mummy of 1932. My 3rd pick is The Invisible Man. My 2nd pick is The Raven. And my 1st pick, of course, is Dracula 1931.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the films that I would start with. But if you go chronologically, you hit the main ones, you can really get some quality out of it.
Yeah.
So, John, once again, it's been an honor and a privilege to sit and talk with you and talk about this piece of our history. It's a piece of Americana.
Mm-hmm.
It lasts for it touches on multiple decades. It goes from the 20s and the 30s and the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
These are solid films, and Universal did a great job on this. And again, guys, if you need some help on Dracula, give me a call. And again, thanks, John, and that's all we've got.
Once again, that was John Johnson and myself on the Universal Monsters Classic franchise. And folks, do take note of our specifications. If you're missing a film there and there's one you want to see, go back into the archives and view. We cover everything from Dracula 1931 to the films like The Raven that should be coming out, to The Invisible Man, The Wolfman, and so forth. Universal starting strong, continuing, and actually I like their work in the 40s. I'm very fond of it. Minus the house films, they did quite a good job. Lancaster of the House Titmus is back, and he's been rather naughty, but we put him in the box, and hopefully he has rehabilitated himself. Lancaster, how you feeling?
It's absolutely dreadful outside. So cold and nasty, and I decided to wear shorts on this foul day.
Well, this is a kids-friendly show, so don't make those remarks.
I know, but it's so difficult when talking about especially Britney Spears. Ooh, 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 delicioso.
Understood. All right, folks, that about wraps it up for this episode of the Dracula Podcast. Thank you to Rob and Martha of Southgate Media, Adam Stover, Drake's Nest Entertainment, and most of all, you for listening. From Lancaster of the House Titmus and here at D&E Studios, we really appreciate you tuning in and joining us every week. Episodes are soon to follow. There's more to come. Penny Dreadful Season 3 starting in October. Tons of Blu-ray releases and all sorts of news. It's in October. It's nearing the Halloween season, so be sure to go out there, have fun, be good to each other, be kind to families and friends. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, above all else, to you and yours, have a most excellent day.
The fair girl advanced and bent over me till I could feel the movement of her breath upon me. Sweet it was in one sense, honey sweet, and sent the same tingling through the nerves as her voice, but with a bitter underlying the sweet. A bitter offensiveness, as one smells in blood. I was afraid to raise my eyelids, but I looked out and saw perfectly under the lashes. The girl went on her knees and bent over me, simply gloating. There was a deliberate voluptuousness which was both thrilling and repulsive. And as she arched her neck, she actually licked her lips like an animal, till I could see in the moonlight the moisture shining on the scarlet lips and on the red tongue as it lapped the white, sharp teeth. Lower and lower went her head as the lips went below the range of my mouth and chin, and seemed about to fasten on my throat. She paused, and I could hear the churning sound of her tongue as it licked her teeth and lips.